Hi everyone, welcome to the Self-Knowledge Lectures. Let me check the audio, just a moment. Hi everyone. Okay, it's okay. And well, today as every Sunday we have our live Facebook lecture here in our Facebook page, Transcendental Knowledge. And today we have, as you see, the lecture number 23 of the Phase B of the Self-Knowledge course that consists on 25 lectures. So this Phase B cycle is about to end. And today we are going to be studying a very interesting topic because in this we are going to talk about some very important symbols that we curiously find very present, like in all Mesoamerican religions, for example. We are going to be delving into that today. But as I always say, if you have any question in relation to this topic or in relation to the self-knowledge course, feel free to leave your comments and questions down there in the chat or to contact me through the Facebook page, or if you watch this video through YouTube, you can also leave your comments and questions, okay? So, in today's lectures, I was saying, we are going to be delving in many symbols that we find in, for example, the symbol of the man being devoured by the serpent. We are going to explain that symbolism. The serpent that swallows its tail, or the Ouroboros. We are going to be talking about that today. And this, the symbol of the eagle swallowing the serpent. And also the feathered serpent, or the Quetzalcoatl. We are going to talk about that also. And we are going to discover how this symbolism is fully related to what it is, let's say, the continuation of the work that we saw when we were talking about the intimate Christ and the death of the causal selves. That was the lecture number 21 of the Phase B. Yeah. Since all this process in which the eagle swallows the serpent actually is talking us about the three last works that the Christ must do on the third mountain of the initiation in order to achieve self-realization. So that the eagle, that is the Father, swallows the serpent, which is Mother God, and in that way we become feathered serpents, or absolute men, thus culminating the great work. And well, to enter into context, just a second, here we go, just a moment, there, sorry. To enter into context on today's topic, let's start talking a little about the serpent, because that is a symbolism that a symbol that we find like in every culture, in all eras. You're going to find the serpent. And what does the serpent symbolize? And why a serpent? Well, the serpent is a symbol that, as you can see here, has been represented in practically all cultures and all ancient religions. We see, for example, the Hindu gods represented with their snakes raised, yeah? And we even see the, for example, the representation of the Buddha in meditation, as you can see here. Let me see if here you can see Buddha there in meditation, like in that seven-headed cobra that rises behind him and that covers him. And that is actually representing that to achieve the state of enlightenment, it is necessary to lift those seven internal serpents that we have been studying in this Phase B lectures, right? You can also see in Egyptian paintings, sculptures, and representations, and we see that they represent the gods, and on their heads or from their hats the serpent appears on their foreheads, right? And we can even see the caduceus of Mercury, which is a symbol of medicine, which you can see here also. And we see it, for example, that the rod represents the spine, and the two serpents, which are the energetic conduits, Ida and Pingala, that they ascend in this rod, and in the rod you find the wings of the spirit. In this symbol that you can see here, which is of a Greek origin, sorry, and also there you find the Sculappius rod, which is the same symbolism. We are seeing the allusion to the snake as the symbol of regeneration and health. That is why this is like the symbol, universal symbol of medicine. But here you can see many other symbolism that in different cultures about the serpent. So you can see, for example, this guy that is seated here, and you see his spine, and that is the reason why it is represented as a snake or a serpent. Because when we are talking about this serpent or this snake, we are actually talking about, the sexual creative energy, right? And when we make ascend that serpent through our spine, our spine has this, when we make ascend our sexual energy through our spine, we can see like that our spine make like this, and then you know that we send the energy here and make like this, which is like the head of this cobra. And actually this with clairvoyance you can see that as a snake of fire, this sacred fire when it's ascending through the spine. That is why it is represented in all cultures with this, with the serpent. And as you can see, if you understand the real meaning of this symbolism, you're going to see that behind all religions, you find the cult to sex, the importance of lifting your inner serpent, which is the kundalini, which is the sexual energy, okay? But we need to know that the serpent has always had two connotations, one negative and one positive. In Christianity, for example, we see both serpents and their representations. On the one hand, we see the tempting serpent of Eden that led man to his fall, and therefore to the loss of his paradisiacal state. And on the other hand, we see the brass or the fiery serpent, which raised Moses on that rod or that pole, and that was the serpent that healed the Israelites in the desert, right? And the serpent, as you can see here, what action is represented is our sexual energy. And what happens, that in its positive aspect, that serpent is our kundalini, the kundalini serpent. And this kundalini is usually represented by a royal cobra, which represents the sexual energy ascending victoriously through our spine, regenerating us, giving us that elixir of the long life, that is our sexual energy, and creating the existential bodies of the being. But in its negative aspect, it is that inverted serpent that represents the conduct buffer organ, which is that tail that you can see here, that we can see coming out of the coccyx in the demons or the devils that we see in paintings and sculptures, and that we really all have internally. If you want to see your own tail, to make yourself aware that you are already a demon, you just need to go out consciously to the astral plane and ask your being to let you see your tail. You're going to see there, and you're going to find that big tail that we all have, that we need to make a work in order to give an end to that tail, okay? Yeah, and since we all fell into fornication, So we fornicated, we let go out from our body our sexual creative energy, and we have continued fornicating existence after existence, fornicating, expelling our sexual energy out of our body. That tail has been developing, and every time more and more. And it is that inverted serpent, or that inverted fire, also represented as a python snake. The other one was a cobra, and that one is the python snake. That tempting serpent of Eden was then that sexual desire which led us to fornicate and fall. It is the same sexual energy, same one, that either develops positively upwards, inwards and upwards, or negatively outwards and downwards, okay, depending on whether we when feeling a sexual desire, we overcome temptation, or we give in to temptation. That is the difference. And the Kundalini serpent ascend within the spine of every white tantric. Kundalini actually means end of the Kunda buffer organ. Since as we develop the Kundalini serpent in our spine, when we achieve chastity, and we stop fornicating and start lifting that sexual energy, that sacred fire, we are developing the Kundalini serpent, and we in turn are, we shorten the Kunda buffer organ until we get to a point in which we completely eliminate that satanic tail of our nature. The serpent is then our divine mother, Kundalini. Kundalini serpent awakens in us when we achieve chastity, working on the elimination of all the details that comprise our self fornication, and when we start making a work to balance our energetic center through the self-observation and the practice of the psychological death, that way transforming our Mercury from black to white, then red, and then to red. And then when it's red, the sacred fire of the Kundalini is lit in us, and we internally, in the astral plane, receive the silver sword. And at that point, it has we already awakened the Kundalini serpent in its upward sense aspect. Okay, but it's important. Now, be just a second. It's important that we know that awakening the Kundalini is not everything. We not only need to awaken the serpent, we actually need to be swallowed by the serpent. That is why you find this representation of this man being swallowed by a gigantic serpent. Because when the serpent swallows us, she gives us, remember the serpent is our divine mother Kundalini, she gives us all of her powers. But what happens is that the mother okay, we were having like a cut here with the internet. Let me check. Yeah, I think it's solved now. I'm very sorry. Yeah, let me check. There you go. Okay, so let's continue. I was saying that, let me see, well, that awakening the serpent is not everything. We not only need to awaken the serpent, we need to be swallowed by the serpent. When the serpent swallows us, remember that the serpent is our divine mother, Kundalini, she actually gives us all of her powers. But the mother doesn't swallow anything unclean. So there is a whole purification process that we must go through in order to be swallowed by the serpent and become serpent man. Sorry. The first thing that we must do, and we have explained that like a lot in this basic lectures, so this is clear for you. The first thing that we must do is to create existential bodies of the being on the work of the first mountain, because the mother needs to devour those existential bodies in order to merge all of them into a single force, which is the force of love. But it turns out that the existential bodies of the first mountain are not pure enough. There's still a lot of ego in us at the end of the first mountain. Okay, at that point we have 78% of consciousness, and the heaviest beasts of our hidden moon, which are the infra dimensions of planet Earth, are still alive, and all the causal selves are still alive in us. So it is necessary that the corruptible, that are the bodies of the first mountain, be dressed in incorruption. So it is necessary to carry out all the process of the second mountain that we explained in the lecture of the intimate Christ and the death of the causal selves, which is the work in which all those solar bodies of the first mountain will be transformed into bodies of gold. And in that process, even the last trace of ego in us will be eliminated. In that mountain, which is known as the mountain of death, the apocalypse, or the end by fire of all of our inferior nature, will take place. Of the elimination of the entire ego. Even the very causes or the seeds of the ego are going to be eliminated in that second mountain. Actually, the second mountain is finished with 99% of consciousness. So this is a lot, right? And in the third mountain, that remaining 1% of consciousness must be achieved. And there, in the third mountain, the mechanicalness of the wheel must end. And that mechanicalness is in the three laws that have to be merged in the third mountain, which is the law of the Father, the law of the Son, and the law of the Holy Spirit, which is the law of the three, the law of creation. It is totally necessary to merge these three forces into one single law, because the absolute cannot be entered as a trinity or as a duality. No, as a unity. That is the only way. The 100% fusion of consciousness is actually achieved when all the parts of the being are integrated. That is why the initiate has to disintegrate the causal selves, because without the disintegration of the causal selves, he could never step on the doors of the absolute, because he may have incarnated the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit within himself. But the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit before the absolute are mechanical. He cannot penetrate, because the ray of creation, or his ray of creation, is still divided into these three laws, which don't allow him to enter the absolute. That is why it is said that God himself has to die, because the initiate, having incarnated the three superior forces of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, is already a God, I mean, he's capable of creating by means of his verb, his words. But since before the absolute, it is still mechanical, it has to go through a great mystical death so that these laws merge into a single law. So it is necessary in the work of the third mountain to get this work done. But remember that we also in the third mountain needs to get a disciple who takes a direct path and reaches the second mountain, because to liberate ourselves completely, we have one requirement, and it is that we must help at least one person to self-realize. And well, that is why the third mountain is known as the mountain of the sacrifice for humanity. And it is in the third mountain where the process will take place so that the eagle can swallow the serpent. The three aspects of love will merge. The three aspects of the fire or of the love are the Christ that was born in us at the end of the first mountain, the Holy Spirit that we achieve at the end of the second mountain, and the Lucifer, which is the other aspect of fire, of love, need to be merged. And the Holy Spirit is the same Divine Mother. I mean, it's the same Kundalini. It's our sexual creative energy. Okay, it is that creative force that at this point is ready to swallow the existential bodies. So, the symbol of the eagle swallowing the serpent actually represents the three labors of the Christ on the third mountain that are also known as the last three labors of Hercules. Okay, and that because there are three steps that the Christ must take on the third mountain, and let's see each one of these steps. The first step is at the end of the second mountain, right after the death of the causal selves. The Christ becomes a serpent of fire. Remember that the Christ is the fire of the fire. At that point, totally clean, he is a serpent of fire. And he must unite with the Holy Spirit, thus becoming an Elohim, which is male, female at the same time. And yeah, he becomes this. He not a guy with, as you can see here, something physical. This is just a representation, but he becomes a god, a person with the two forces already fused within him, the male and the female. Okay, and in this step, we are converted into serpent men. The serpent has swallowed us, so we are turned into androgynous beings. All self-realized beings are androgynous. Okay, they are not female or male. They are actually androgynous. They can present themselves as a female or as a male if they want to, because they actually have the two forces inside of them. Okay, and from now on, the initiate will no longer continue with the physical couple. Actually, marriage with the physical partner arrives until death do them part. And once the entire ego has died, until when the person already is died in himself, okay, when the work is done of the death of the ego, the work is done with the physical partner, and the person remains integrated with his divine soul, and with his divine soul, he or she, if it's a girl, the one who achieved this, will do the creation of the bodies of light in the work of the third mountain, okay, with his inner partner. Okay, that is the first step. In the second step, the serpent must swallow her tail. So, if this is a process, the serpent must start to absorb herself to start forming the O of the Spirit, or the O of the God Mother. That is the serpent swallowing its tail, that is also known as the Ouroboros. And for this to take place, the Christ that is already fused with the Holy Spirit, which is one of the laws, remember, of the third mountain, needs now to defeat the dragon. And the dragon is the Lucifer, and must defeat him in all his temptations and merge with the Lucifer. Since the Christ has already eliminated all of his ego and even the causal selves, actually Lucifer, which is the temptation, the tempter inside of him, no longer has anyone to tempt, right? And there, the forces of the Holy Spirit, the Christ, and the Lucifer are already fused. And that is, they form this O of the Spirit, or the O of God the Mother. The Mother. Those are the three forces of love that turns into that O. And in the third and last step, the serpent, which is known now as the Christ Lucifer, is devoured by the eagle. The eagle is that third law that needs to be fused, which is the law of the Father. And that way, it becomes a feathered serpent. And it is said that fair is his freedom, as after his hard work as a psychological trainer, that is a Lucifer, because he has been left without any shadow of evil, and then the Logos, which is the Father, swallows him, absorbs him, and their wisdom is integrated into love. And that is the symbol of the aspects when the eagle swallows the serpent. That is represented the passage from duality, which is the O and the O of God the Mother, and the I of God the Father, and they penetrate, right? And that way they become an unity. All of those three forces becomes one, and there, as a unity, can now enter the absolute. Remember, we cannot enter the absolute, neither as a trinity or a duality, but as a unity. One absorbs the two laws and remains united to the great law, connected directly to the absolute by the great law, to reach unity, to reach total liberation. So the eagle represents spirit, and the serpent the fire. And when the eagle swallows the serpent, when we become feathered serpents, a Quetzalcoatl, and then the work is done. Then we achieve self-realization. And we have there 100% of consciousness. So we are totally conscious at every moment, at every point, and we can be free. So I mean, we are creator gods, and we are free to enter the absolute, to go out of the absolute, and to visit all of the universes, because we at that point are totally free. No law can subject us, because we are free. We become free of all laws. Understand? And well, you can see that in this beautiful lecture, actually the masters have clearly given us the culmination process of this wonderful work of self-knowledge that we all came to do in this physical manifestation. And we can also see how in all cultures and in all times, the knowledge of this path has existed and has been like encrypted in its art, in all representations, as a legacy that has passed through time. And that when we have like the understanding of those symbolism, then we can get to know what is the meaning of all of that. And well, people, this has been today's lecture, the lecture number 23. And in the next topic, which is the lecture 24th, we are going to talk about the practice of the cross and what the cross symbolizes. Another very interesting lecture, and I invite you to join us in that lecture, okay? So that is all for today. Thank you very much to all of you. And, well, see you the next time. Ciao, ciao.